Hello, one and all. I'm going to give everybody a chance to just kind of filter into the room here. Hope everyone's doing really well tonight. Thank you so much for showing up at this info session all about the Writers Guild Foundation's Veterans Writing Project. My name is Lauren O'Connor. I'm a librarian in the Writers Guild Foundation's library. I'm joined by my colleague, Kira Vandenbrand, who is the WGF's Programs and Community Outreach Manager. So she basically oversees the whole VETS writing program here at WGF. And I hope you're here because you're planning to apply this year. We've got a lot of good info to be shared tonight. And we're also joined by a few program alums. We've got Sarah Hopkins, Yusuf Nash, and Harsha Rao. And here's how this is going to work. So I'll serve as moderator, and I'll ask Kira and our esteemed group of panelists here all kinds of questions about the program. Hopefully you know a good bit of what we're talking about already, but the program has changed a little bit, I'm told, so that will be interesting to see how it's changed. We'll get into that, and you will leave with all the details you need about the program, how it works, and about the application process. And hopefully you'll feel good about it. So once we're done getting through everything we want to get through, we'll open it up to you who are in attendance here to ask whatever questions you want. But just hold tight to those questions. We'll get to that in a little bit. And hopefully if you listen really well, we'll cover what you were going to ask. And if you do have that question, I think since this is a webinar, we've got that little Q&A box. Just go ahead and drop any questions there. Try not to put them in the chat because they'll probably get lost. All right, so without being too redundant, I will first tell you about the Writers Guild Foundation in case you are unfamiliar with us. So the Writers Guild Foundation, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are not the WGA West, even though we are in the same building and kind of associated with them. So our mission as an organization is to preserve and promote the history and craft of writing for the screen. So film, television, that kind of thing. And we do a number of things. You heard me introduce myself as a librarian. We have a script library that's open to the public in the WGA West building. If you're interested in hearing more about that, I'll throw some links into the chat. And we also host several programs serving K through 12 and university students, and we partner with similar organizations to host events and educational opportunities. Our Writers Access Support Staff Training Program equips writers from underrepresented groups with the training and hands-on experience to secure a job as a writer's assistant or script coordinator. Yusuf is an alum of that too. But none of that is what we're here to talk about tonight. We're here to talk about the Veterans Writing Project. But I just think it's a good idea if you're applying to this program to just get familiar with the WGF as an organization and just kind of see what we're about. I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to, just kick it over to Kira to give us, your brief overview of the Veterans Writing Project. What is it?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. So I know a lot of you know this. You probably read the website, but to give you an idea of what the mission of the Veterans Writing Project, our goal is to provide emerging writers from U.S. military backgrounds with tools, resources, training, mentorship, all designed to nurture your passion for writing for the screen and also navigate some of the more technical business sides of the industry. So it's very comprehensive. It focuses largely on the process of writing a script, very craft heavy, but we try to supplement with lessons about business as well.
Panel, is there anything that she left out there that you would add that's a part of the program?
Oh, no, I think that was all of it.
Okay. So Kira, tell us about, just give us the overview of kind of the 2024-2025 admissions process and the program. Like, when are applications going to go online and all of that?
Yes, important dates. So the big one to remember is that applications are going to open at noon. So that's 12 p.m. Pacific time. I know that sometimes it comes up. People are like, where is the application? It's just maybe different time zones. So keep an eye out. At noon Pacific time this Thursday, January 11th, applications will open. And then we'll keep them open for about a month. And on Monday, February 12th, the application window will close, and that's going to be at the end of the day. So 11:59:59, that's when the applications will close. However, I recommend not waiting until the absolute last second. As far as the remainder of the timeline, the exact start dates for the program is going to be announced later, but we usually host our kickoff weekend retreat in June. So we know that this year it's going to be around early to mid-June 2024. And anyone who applies will hear back about their status regardless of the result no later than May 10th, so early May. And other than that, those are kind of like the most relevant dates, but just keep in mind January 11th to February 12th, and then you can expect a response early May and program kickoff closer to June. So those are the big timeline components.
So I want to get into like these questions about kind of like, you know, how applicants are matched with mentors and that kind of thing. But first, I think it would probably be helpful to everyone if you just kind of tell us a little bit about like the overall program structure. How is that different from previous years? Like what can people expect from this program?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that everyone here has kind of gone through a different iteration of the program. I think the experience has been different, but we've used all our past cycles to inform what needs to change for the future. So looking forward, we are going to switch our program from being around 11 months, which has been the past, to 8 to 9 months. And we're doing this for a lot of reasons, but they're all very good, including the establishment of a fellowship for alumni of the program. And, you know, in doing this, we're streamlining our workshops. So now looking at that new condensed timeline, we're going to be kicking off, like I said, in June. After that, it will move into our weekly basic course meetings. So these are on the fundamentals of writing for the screen, which maybe I know that a lot of you can talk about the lessons that go into that. Yusuf is now a mentor with our program, so maybe he can talk about his experience with that as well. But that 10-week portion, that's going to be through September following the midterm retreat, so late June to August, and then we switch to meeting every 2 weeks from September onwards. And I would say pretty consistently for the past many years, we've been meeting every Tuesday, second and fourth Tuesday. So that's the standard timeline.
And then there's other, like, people can expect sort of other like in-person events and things as part of the program too, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we host a midterm retreat. For example, we're actually hosting this year's midterm retreat in just 2 weeks. And then there's going to be other in-person events scattered throughout the year. It's going to be a mix of kind of Zoom and in person. So our kickoff weekend retreat that I mentioned, that one is mandatory in person for anyone, regardless of your location. However, we're very flexible when it comes to the remainder of the meetings. We understand that travel isn't always easy if you're not located in Los Angeles. So I would consider it a hybrid program with the bulk of the meetings being on Zoom and some occasional required sessions.
Got it. So what, I always feel like I start fresh here and like learn about the program anew every time we do this, but like what, and feel free to chime in, panelists, like what is, like sort of the ultimate objective when someone goes through the program? What can they hope to like emerge with at the end of the whole? And please chime in about your experiences.
Well, your goal at the end of this program is to come up with $100 million deal with Netflix. Anything less is a complete failure. No, so breaking into to give a quick intro on myself, right? I went through the program 2018 through 2019, and after that joined the Universal Fellowship, and then after that got into the WGA, sold a few projects, and that is the ultimate goal of what you're trying to do from this program, right? And you're not going to get into the WGA right after the program. You might not get hired onto anything right after the program, might not sell anything after the program. But the goal is to have something on your resume that says, this is somebody who has been vetted by at least one organization in Hollywood as somebody who can actually write and craft a story. And then to while you're in the program to not just learn about story structure, which, you know, you can come in at all sorts of levels of this program, right? Beginning, middle, like advanced, right? But you're going to learn story structure, whatever level you are. And by the end, you should have ideally a really strong polished sample that's been looked over by the mentors that you can use to try and get representation or to apply to one of the TV fellowships or studio fellowships. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to launch your writing career. And again, I do want to emphasize that it's not going to happen overnight. It might be even after this program, another year or two before you are actually getting paid to write. But without the program, it might be another 20 to infinity years, right?
I mean, I could especially talk about myself. You know, it's like I think I went through the program in 2016. Yeah, 2016, 17. Didn't get anything right away, but I made a lot of great connections over there. But through there, in terms of connections, like I met some people, you know, I met one mentor named, you know, Ken Lazebnik, who just started his whole MFA program, and I still had the GI Bill. So I was like, okay, I'll continue my writing career through him. But also through that is like I gained internships, and some of the interns, like, you know, some of the places I interned at, happen to know some of the mentors I worked with also. So like it's kind of like part of that connection as well. So it's like, oh, I got these strong samples coming out of it, then going through this MFA program, I got even more samples. And then, you know, obviously, like I still volunteer, still meet more people. So that's also a big thing about it, is that you're making connections, you're making, you know, some friends over there. Like I feel like a lot of my writer friends came through the program. I have a tendency to talk to them more than my non-veteran friends, or in terms of like writer friends, like my non-veteran writer friends, if that makes sense. Just to help me with a lot of stuff there, because everyone came out there very solid and gave really great notes. So much much to Harsher's point, it's like, yeah, you go out there, you get samples, like you'll know how to write and create character and, you know, go through all that stuff, but it's not going to happen overnight, because I didn't get my first actual gig till like a couple years, no, even longer, like, because I also went through the Writers Access Support Staff Training Program, very long title, but that's where I learned how to be a writer assistant script coordinator. So like I got my first job in 2022. But during that year, I got hired by a couple of guild signatories to write shorts for them. So that's how I became a member of the WGA. So it's like, you know, just putting your web out there and just meeting so many people and getting jobs and one thing after another after another. So like, as you can see, I started in 2016. They get my first job till 2022. So it's like, you know, that was a 6-year process for me.
I think that's really important. Just to echo that too, Yusuf, it's the longevity of what this program can offer you, and it gives you resiliency. So like in the military, we learn resiliency. Like this is something that is like intrinsic in us. But in this kind of career, it's a very different type of resiliency, which is why like you have to have your battle buddy, which I think coming out of this program, I still meet with my writers group. You know, we still meet almost every other month just to, you know, talk about life, talk about stuff. The other flip side of that is if you're a TV writer versus a feature writer. So I came into this program, I had written a couple of features, and I was like, I think I want to dip my toe into TV writing. And so it was a completely different ball game for me coming in thinking, I was like, I know how to write. I'm a feature writer. I can do the thing. And then I was like, TV. And then like my mentor just whoopsh, like all of the, like so many things. I got my butt whooped, and it was amazing, and it was good. And it was exactly what I needed at that point in time in my career. So I was in the faded 2019, 2020 class. You know, the world is burning. And I'm like, finish this fellowship. And it took a lot for a lot of us to finish that, but to get to pitch night after that kind of crazy year was epic. And coming back just to kind of bookend the resiliency thing, I think a fellowship like this, a program like this, is going to teach you how to have a different kind of resiliency, different than the military, especially in a creative capacity.
Thank you all for that. So I'm seeing already in the Q&A, we're going to get to a lot of these questions, by the way. Like it's so just don't worry, this information will be covered. But talk to me about hybrid, like kind of like virtual versus in person with this program. How does that work? How's it going to work this coming year?
Yeah, as far as like I said, at least the mandatory in person, we really only have that one that is going to be required to be in person. That is the kickoff weekend retreat. And we require it just since it sets the precedent for the year to come. We found that those who meet with their mentors at the kickoff are going to have much deeper relationship with them, and it's going to be a much more productive weekend overall, since you'll be leaving that kickoff with the concept that you are going to be working on throughout the year. So you're going to choose what the idea is, what the basis is for your script. Other than that, though, like I said, we are flexible and host so much of this on Zoom just so that we can accommodate people who are from everywhere, including our mentors. As far as our meetings on Zoom, we are going to do them weekly. And that's on, like I said, Tuesday nights. And I want to also clarify that it's going to be, at least, unless something radical changes, they'll be from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, which I know for our East Coast folks is a little rough. And we haven't figured out the perfect workaround for it yet, but there's always, solutions if you simply are unable to do that schedule. But yeah, for the Zooms, that's when I would expect they would happen. And then as we move into meeting every other week, again, it's going to be on Tuesday evenings, continued throughout the year. But any in-person events, if you're able to come to them, we're going to try to offer as many as possible, whether that be meetups or just panels. But if you can't make it to those, we'll do everything we can to stream them on Zoom so you could still have access. It might just not be the same level of engagement in the Q&A as always.
Got it. So let's move, since we kind of talked about, sort of like the hybrid nature of the program, let's talk about eligibility. And what are like the requirements for, the basic requirements for getting into the program?
Yeah, when it comes down to just the absolute basics, applicants, you have to be a U.S. military veteran. You must be interested in writing for the screen, both the craft and business of screenwriting and storytelling. You have to be over the age of 21 and a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. If we're looking at a couple exceptions to these requirements, we occasionally allow non-veteran applicants if and only if they are in a writing pair, so that one half of a writing pair or writing team. And of course, if you apply as a writing team or a writing pair with a writing partner, you have to write a script with that partner. So that's the exception. If you are a non-veteran, you can have or if you are a veteran, you could have a non-veteran writing partner and work on a script together. And then second exception would be that we do allow some active duty service members to apply if they are able to fully participate in the sessions, which we've had some folks who have been active duty and had no issues. And then I guess other more specific requirements, we do require some amount of writing experience. That does not mean it has to be professional though. You just have to show that you have been working on your craft in some way. And, we prefer that you have some practice writing for the screen, even if it's just you picked up a book and you started writing a script, you're self-taught, that's fantastic. But there does have to be a basis. It can't be, the first time you're taking pen to paper. And I think most importantly, you just have to be very passionate about writing for the screen and taking this path. I would say this program isn't really for someone who is less interested in writing for the screen, but just wants to, write a story and try it out. This is for someone who really is interested in this as a career, and interested in making something out of this or telling a story. So that's the overview of what we look for.
But yeah, you definitely get extra points if you're a brown guy with a beard. It's like Yusuf and I got it. I noticed a few the Q&As where people saying that, I applied previously, I was a finalist, right? Or, what can I do to make my, application stand out more, right? Kira, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you have to submit like 5 pages of one of your projects, right? And
we've increased it a little bit. So now
Okay.
it's like minimum 10 pages. And if someone does have a full sample, that's awesome. But at the very minimum, we're asking like 10 to 15. Yeah, so it's,
and then there are also essays
I'm sure we'll
about
get more
yourself,
into the
right?
requirements later, but oh yeah. We'll try to give some advice on each of those at some point.
I'll save the answer to that question later. I tried to answer a Q&A askers, but Kira smacked me down.
I'm so sorry. Laying down the law.
It's there's 26 questions in there. I'm getting overwhelmed. Okay. So let's get into like the nitty-gritty of like the application process. And also like I think people I don't know that it's necessarily useful to know this, but how many participants do you foresee taking this year?
This year, I'd anticipate around 40 to 50. It kind of depends on who applies and the availability of mentors, but somewhere in that range.
Cool. And how big, and this is just like my own question, but like how big is the average, like, because everyone's put into groups like with a mentor, right? How big is that group typically?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bigger this year, Yusuf can attest, but our goal is to get maybe around 4 to 5 mentees and then 2 to 3 mentors. And this means that you'll be working not one-on-one with the mentor, but with a small group of mentors who can offer different perspectives. You'll meet in these small group breakouts, which I can get into more detail about, but our sessions typically are broken into 2 parts, a panel and then the small group breakouts where you work with your mentors and your peers. And these groups are very curated, where they are going to share your genre interests, your format interests. That's our goal, at least. So that's why we ask so many questions up front. If you are admitted, you'll receive a lot of surveys, a lot of follow-ups, and it's all with the goal of matching you with a mentor who best suits your needs. But yeah, I would say definitely getting 2 to 3 mentors and then working with a few peers in the program as well.
Great. Okay, so let's get into, I think probably the most important thing we can talk about is the application requirements and what we're looking for and that sort of thing. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a 5-part application process, right? There's essay questions, log lines, personal statement, resume, and writing samples. And I want to go over all 5 of those things. So let's start with the essay questions. Or do you think that's a good place to start? Should we start with the...
I would argue we could even mesh that in with the personal statements. I think they kind of, yeah.
And because they're both writing. I mean, your personal statement is a writing sample too.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are we looking for? What advice can we give?
I can say, at least from my end, you know, always looking for authenticity, painting a picture of yourself. What I'd say, maybe it's easier to say what we don't want to see, which is a restating of your resume or a personal statement that's only 2 sentences. You know, we give you 500 words to tell us who you are. I feel like the panelists would be better about saying what makes for a good personal statement. I feel like they're all very experienced in that, so I defer to them on how to really write a good one.
I mean, for me, I'll definitely like write about, you know, just like your personal story, like what you went through, you struggle, but like most importantly, like why you want to get into writing in the first place. Like, so in my case, it's like, oh, I went through a lot when I was in the military. You know, my parents are from Iraq. You know, you can imagine how that's like, you know, with some certain people in the military. So like, you know, I wrote about that. But I also wrote about like stuff growing up and how film in general, film and television generally influenced me, you know, and how storytelling helps me with like, you know, coping with like a few things as well. So like using that in my essay, my personal essay, like I think helped show like, oh, I want to tell the story. This is stuff I've been through. And this is like why I want to become a writer, because like I want to like change things, or like I see things aren't right. So I want to bring that perspective, you know, I want to tell stories that I don't see. And I feel like I'm the one who could tell the story. You don't want, you definitely don't want to write like you're applying for a job. You know, that's not what this program is looking for. You're not here to get hired. You're here to be a storyteller. You know, you're here to learn how to write stories and, you know, be able to put those stuff on screen.
On
Yeah,
the
you
flip side
said,
of that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go for it, Sarah. We
I was
got to
just
put
gonna
some
say,
break
like,
between us.
right, right. I feel like you and I are probably going to say the same thing. I feel like on the flip side of that too is like, why is somebody going to want to sit in a room with you and talk with you? So for my personal statement, I was like, man, I am over 40. I've raised 2 kids. I'm in a military spouse. I was like, dude, I have so many things to say. And to get that on the page, obviously I'm not going to write my personal statement like that, but your personality, the things that are just so inside you that you need to get out, that you would love to have a conversation with, is what you really want to get into your personal statement. And then to just kind of put the cherry on the top of it, you're going to drop the most random information about yourself that somebody that's going to read that is going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to that person. So like, I think one of mine was like, I'm the worst Girl Scout leader ever because guess what? I don't like to sell cookies. Like people are going to be like, oh, we got to talk about that kind of thing. So putting things in, and again, you're also going to really want to make sure that you reflect what kind of writing that you want to do. So obviously, if I'm coming in with like a dramedy kind of idea, I'm going to want to put a lot of drama and comedy in my personal statement. Like your voice needs to be so clear and concise in that personal statement. Like you would probably are almost going to want to spend as much time on your personal statement as you did on your script. So just a little bit of advice there.
Man, Sarah said it way better than I would. So I'll just give you maybe three things to think about as you write it, right? It's like Sarah said, the first thing is this should be something that causes somebody to remember you, right? To make you stand out, be memorable in some way, right? I'm a Girl Scout leader who hates selling cookies, right? Boom, you remember that right away, right? The second thing is, if you take it one step further, right, is to connect that story with why you want to write. When I was an Army veteran, I served in Iraq, right? And one thing that kept me sane was actually writing while I was over there, right? And so I kind of tell a story about some crazy stuff that happened during the deployment in a funny way because I was a comedy guy when I applied. And then I tie that into why I want to write. And then the third level, if you get to it, is you wrap it all in a story, right? And that's kind of what Yusuf is saying as well, which is you are here to show that you are a storyteller. If you cannot tell the story of your life in a way that is interesting, that has a point to it, right, and keeps people engaged, that's kind of a sign that you maybe won't be able to do that on the page with material that isn't directly you, right? And so that's kind of why people ask for the personal statement, not just in this program, but in really any fellowship that you apply to in Hollywood. And even when you are meeting with studio execs, right? In what's called a general meeting the first time you meet them, right? Or you're pitching on a project, they're always going to ask, oh, just tell me about yourself, right? And that is saying, give me your personal statement, right? And ideally, link this to this project that you are pitching on, right? If we are writing a story on like being a terrible Girl Scout leader, right? And I come in and I don't have a story that links to being like a terrible parent, right? Or feeling like a terrible parent, I'm not going to get the job. And so that's why the program here is asking for that, because you're going to get this all throughout your career in Hollywood. And the more time and effort you put into this, the better served you will be, not just in applying to this program, but in your entire career as a writer.
Yeah, and like during the first weekend, like what, at least with my group, we always ask, like we go with different mentees, and once they give their ideas of like what projects they want to work for the year, we always ask like, okay, why why does it resonate with you? Why do you feel like you want to tell the story? Stuff like that. And sometimes they might not have an answer right away, but they would try to like kind of prick the brain. So that's like, the direction you want to choose is just like, here's the story, here's what I am, and this is why I'm writing this thing, because how it resonates with me in whatever way.
Awesome. Amazing advice. Uh, so the essay questions, what are those? What advice do you have on those?
Those are, they kind of serve different purpose, like, well, a few different purposes. One, again, it is a little writing sample in itself, a mini writing sample. Two, we're trying to figure out if you're based on your responses that we feel this program is the right fit for you. There's certain aspects of the program that are very important, and that includes the ability to work in a team format. Even if you're writing features, you're still going to be engaging with your group all year. So we want to see real examples, anecdotes of how you have exemplified certain behavior in your own life, whether that be, engaging in teamwork or learning to collaborate with others, very importantly, taking feedback and, note taking, taking notes from your mentors on your script is, I would argue, maybe in the top 3 most important things in the entire program, maybe even number 1. So we want to know that that's something that you're open to. And if you feel like maybe taking notes is not your thing, you're not ready to have that open dialogue, it might not be the program for you. But if you feel like it is, we'd love to see how you can demonstrate that that's the case.
And like in your essay, one of those essays you could always write about like just a time you've been collaborating with people, just whatever it is. I mean, all of us are in the military. A lot of us are veterans. Like just think about that one time we all had to do some kind of task, and like someone might have been difficult, or how you receive things. We all done our EPRs and OPRs. How did we, how we're able to like take feedback for those kind of things. So, just take the great thing about being a veteran is that like we got so much experience, so many things to pull from that so many other people don't have, and that's what makes this program kind of great. That what makes us stand out the most is like we got a lot of shit to pull from. So like just pull through that shit and just put it on the page.
Anyone have anything else to add? Okay. So let's talk about the log lines. And I also want to like tie that into the writing sample. So tell me first, what are the log lines? What are you looking for? Are people sort of giving you log lines for things that they hope to develop throughout the program, or what is that?
Yeah, maybe Lauren, you'd probably be better at defining a log line than I would be, but I would highly recommend researching this if you're not familiar. If you go to our application guidelines page, we have a couple links to help you figure out how to just structure a log line, since I know it's not a natural format for a lot of people, but these are very important. I wouldn't definitely don't phone it in. I wouldn't phone any of the application in, but these are important because it tells us, what concepts interest you and what you want to write about. Ideally, one of the sample log lines you provide might at least serve as the basis for the concept you're going to develop in the program. It's not necessarily required. You will absolutely have a chance to change that if admitted, but just keep in mind, when we admit you, you're going to be telling us like, what's your preferred genre? What's your preferred format? Let's say you're only interested in half-hour comedy. You state that as your interest, but then the log line you submit is for a dark psychological horror feature. Might be a little bit confusing. So I'd recommend, keeping your preferences, format and genre-wise, somewhat in line with your log lines. If you're trying to explore something new, just make it clear that like, I've written features, but I've never written TV. I'm interested in exploring writing a pilot. But here are my concepts for a pilot rather than a feature. So just sort of keeping the application cohesive, that's very helpful. I think within the actual, log for the log lines themselves, I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say about writing them, like what makes one good versus bad, because I am not myself, that's not my area expertise.
Oh man, I would rather write a whole script than a log line. Like log lines are hard, you guys. And here's the thing with log lines. So I love, Kira, that you referenced there's 2, I think it's John August, and then there's a Screencraft link in there to log lines. So Ken Miyamoto is actually my mentor. And when I first started working with him, he was like, just send me log lines. I just want to see log lines. And I would have to send him log lines. And it was the most torturous thing ever. But it was like, the best way to learn how to write is to learn how to write a really good log line. So word of advice, write a log line and then don't do anything with it for 2 days and then come back to it and then rewrite it again, because log lines are one of those tricky things. And once you figure it out, it's kind of like that magic juice where you read it and you're like, ooh, there it is. That's the hook. So take time on your log lines, make sure that they're concise. And I love also, Kira, that on your on the application guidelines that it says you don't have to do this log line when you come in. If you want to retweak it or you have another project that you're thinking about, that's great. So don't let the log line thing scare you, but do your research, make sure that you know exactly what a log line is and what a log line isn't before you submit it.
I feel like I changed my log line for whatever I'm working on. Like when someone's like, "Oh, what you working on right now?" I feel like every single time I answer that question, it's a different log line. Like I can't just I just want to send people down. Let me just give you the 5 minute spiel. Let me tell you the whole story in 5 minutes. That's my log line. Um, but definitely one thing to look out for is like try to keep it within 2 sentences. If it goes like if you write a whole paragraph log line, then that's like a bit of a red flag. So like you want to keep it short and precise because I mean I'm giving a very early lesson now, but like you want to keep the story as simple as possible. Like what is the simple story? You don't have to tell like, oh, it's a commentary on blah 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 blah. No, you just say like, main characters after this and obstacle and ending, whatever. So like keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, there was a quote recently, the Steven Spielberg quote recently that was like, if you can distill an idea down to like 12 words, it's gonna be a movie that works. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about log lines in relation to the writing sample. In terms of like and in terms of what a person says in their application they want to write. Like we sort of touched on that, but like let's talk about the writing samples.
Yeah, absolutely. So we asked for 3 log lines, so there's some flexibility. Obviously, if you're writing sample, maybe they're touching on some different genres, formats, but your writing sample, it would be great if it was at least sort of edging on some of the territory, genre, format interest that you've indicated that you are interested in, if that makes sense. So, if you have you submit features as your top format, it'd be great to see that your sample is in the format of a feature. It's not necessarily required, but we are starting to sort of limit and change some of our requirements around the writing sample. I can go over what we accept if that's helpful. It is on our website, but it's sometimes helpful to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Karen, might be helpful because I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
questions around that.
Yes, then let's look through. So, just, laying it out for you, I'll be honest, the program becomes more competitive every year. I think it becomes apparent, especially if like you look through applications. I know Yusuf's read through a lot, Lauren's read through a lot as well. It's tough. And there is some, I'm not going to say like priority, but we definitely will take an extra look at writing samples that fall in the format of a feature, script, TV. This could be original or spec script, short film. We also accept stage plays and web series scripts. So these are sort of in the territory of what the program is focusing on. If you don't have these scripts, we do accept other formats. We also can accept some samples formatted as documentaries, graphic novels, short story in the form of prose, and an excerpt from a book or a manuscript. But like I said, we are prioritizing those that are in the format of, writing for the screen, just since there are so many people interested in this program and in, respecting our mentors' times, it's hard to really teach all of this from the ground up. It's not really the purpose of the program to teach it from square one. So we're hoping that, a lot of these applicants will come in with a little bit of knowledge, whether that's self-taught or not. But yeah, like I said, we do accept other samples, and we've definitely admitted people on some stellar samples that were prose or, not script format. So it is absolutely possible.
I will say this, having reviewed applications before, no matter what you submit for your writing sample, the adage that you need to grab the reader on, it's not even like in the first 10 pages, it's in the first half of the first page. Like that's when I'm already making a judgment as to whether or not you can write. So like just show me that you can write and make a huge splash and grab me by the throat, because we look at a lot of these, and like as soon as you possibly can, make it apparent that you can write and that I want to like go on board with whatever story you're submitting. So we take like we'll take your full script as part of like the application, but like just know like you want to hook me in like at least the first 3 pages.
And
Yeah.
some great advice. The WGF library, for those of you who's not in town, does host like script pages. So like I think you're doing one for the holdovers in like a couple weeks, I want to
Mhm.
say. So like what they're gonna do is like, oh, here's the writers for the holdover. Let's look at the script, ask some questions, and you'll see the whole script. Up there, but also that like Lauren as a librarian can also like you can also email. Do you still do that email thing where they send you a message and
Yeah,
you can
and you
send
know
them?
what? Like, and I'm gonna put my email right in the I'll put the email right in the chat. Um, if you have like questions or want like examples of like dynamic writing on a first page, like, we're not able to send out scripts from the library in their entirety, but like if you're if you're working on something and you just like want to see what like a really amazing first page looks like, email me.
Mhm.
Like, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
That's what the library is there for.
Wait,
Yeah.
really? Oh my God. I'm actually
Yeah.
the delegate. I never knew that. What? I'm out here fucking Googling like dynamic first pages. I could just email
Yeah.
Lauren. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
She has all the secrets. I actually feel like we're just dropping a cheat sheet. But everyone needs to check out this blog post that was written by Lauren. It tells you everything you need to know about writing a bio, a personal statement, a writing resume. This is the answer that you seek, and it's very, very helpful. So strongly,
Mhm.
strongly recommend you read through this.
And if you're able to come to LA or live in LA, definitely make an appointment to go to the Writers Guild library. On the website, you could make an appointment and ask them like what scripts you want to read. You could like search the entire catalog, and you could just walk in and just read through there. They'll even have like a full season or seasons of television shows that you could just come in and like read every single one of them. So like, one time I wanted to write a Supergirl spec, so I ended up reading like the entire first two seasons because they had it on their iPad. So I was like, that's amazing. So, the great thing about like in this digital age is like there's a lot of resources out there. So like if and I'm gonna attest to this, like a lot of mistakes that like newer screenwriters make is like they tend to just write literally what they want to show on screen, but they're missing some emotion and tone. And that's why you gotta be reading these screenplays to see like what kind of emotion and tone they're gonna put on then. So if we could see like, oh, they like as a reader, it's like, okay, they got the right idea. It's not there, but they kind of know what they're going for. And then that's just like, he looks left, he looks right. Okay, well, what else? It's just you can't just say he squints. What
Yeah,
we
I
need
think
more.
that brings home like a really, really important point, that especially at the beginning of like your writing career, um, read scripts, like, and read like current scripts. Obviously try to seek out scripts from like your favorite like movies and TV shows and stuff, no matter when they're from. But like looking at what people are doing right now, you know, you can reflect that in your own writing, and it shows like, wow, they know what they're doing. They've looked at more current stuff. um that's
One of the
my
first
little,
things
like,
my mentor said to me was like, "What's the last script you read?" And I was like, "Oh, so you should be reading as many scripts as you're writing."
Yeah, it's kind of I feel like a lot of questions people have been asking have been like, this program will do XYZ for me, right? Like, how do I get in, et cetera. And I feel like in the military, we're so focused on getting that, that thing that says you've done something, right? You are a parachutist if you went through airborne school, right? Or you know how to rappel if you got that air assault badge on you, right? But here it's kind of a backward situation when it's a writer, right? You are actually developing the skills on your own in order to earn those accolades, right? You can go through an MFA program, you can do a program like this, right? But you're only going to get out of it what you actually put into it, right? And so if you come in here just fully buttoned up, you've read a bunch of scripts, written a bunch of scripts on your own, right? You're going to get so much more out of this program. You're going to use it, right? So think about this program as something you use to enhance yourself, as opposed to this program being something that gives you a badge that says now you're a writer. Because no matter what level you get as a writer, you're always going to be having to prove yourself until you get that $100 million deal from Netflix. And then you can wear a badge, make one up that says, I am a writer.
oh, sorry, I was putting the West Wing pilot script in the chat. um just a second. Okay. So just I think what would make more sense for us to talk about right now? Just general kind of like do's and don'ts for applicants, or do you want to talk a little bit about how people get paired with mentors based on kind of, what they put in their application?
I think maybe the do's and don'ts are probably what people are more curious about now, but I'd be happy to touch on the other side of it. And I do have I always am happy to make some clarifications maybe in the Q&A of any other points we've made, just reiterating some stuff about the log lines. I'm answering some stuff in the Q&A chat as we go, by the way. So keep an eye out.
Okay, so let's get into like the detailed details of what are the do's and don'ts in applying to this program, and also what makes an applicant stand out.
Yeah, I think I'll briefly add some, these are more technical, I'd say, but I want to hear from everyone else. I just need to emphasize this. Do not miss the deadline, apply early. I know that 1 month seems like a lot, but then suddenly it's 11:58 p.m. on the deadline day. And I can't promise that Submittable is going to accept it at that point because it has let some folks down before. And as much as we want to extend a grace period, it's hard to do that for every single person who misses it. So, apply early. I would recommend at least like 48 hours in advance, though we love it when people apply extra early because it gives us a better idea of how many we need to review. And then as far as your application, have people proofread. Trust me, it will make a difference. It's always those small things that slip by that might be the do or don't when it comes down to you and 3 other amazing applicants. And then last piece of advice, I would say, really make sure you read through our FAQs and that are on the application guidelines page. I can send that link again. And there you're going to see in that it's really important you dedicate time to your writing sample and your personal statement. These are absolutely critical, and it's really your time to shine. Also the essay questions, which I know some folks have been asking, we're going to, just so that, we don't want people to form an answer around the question. We want them to come from a genuine place. So you'll see those questions on the application. Just know they have to do with, your ability to work in a team and taking feedback. That's the subject, but the exact question you'll see later. Just make sure you're thoughtful about your responses. You don't have to submit on day 1. It won't make a difference, but be mindful of the deadline. So as far as the actual, more advice that might be helpful in writing the statement, I defer to everyone else.
I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, just like you definitely want to write a story. But that's another thing too, like with each of the questions answered, still do it in like a story format. When we're talking about if one of the questions like how do you take feedback or notes, talk about taking the task, like just how did the problem get started? How did you resolve it? Was it resolved at the end? Kind of think of that kind of thing of like what you had to do, what you learned from it, stuff like that. I definitely say like one thing don't write. It's like, oh, I already know what I'm doing and I don't need any help. I don't need any mentorship. I'm just here just to make connections. And it's just like, okay, I mean, yeah, that's on, it's cool, but it's like that's gonna be like an instant no. I think I got one applicant that said that at one time I was reviewing applications. I was just like hard no. Like right, I didn't even bother reading anything else. I saw that, I was just like, I just don't need that at all. But even then, like, you know, also read a lot of people with terrible grammar, and it makes it hard to read. You want to, that's, no, yeah, like why bother reading, continuously reading? And there's also like a real life thing too. Like say if you didn't go through this program, but it's like, oh, I know this great agent, and he or she is going to read my script. They're going to get me up Hollywood, but you never bother checking the grammar. They're going to read your one script and be like, I'm not even going to bother talking to this person ever again, because they're like, oh, this guy, this person says they're a writer and they can't even get apostrophes right. Like, so I'm gonna harp very hard on that. So get somebody to help proofread. Grammarly is an option as well. You take whatever resources you need to do to like make it happen. So that way, you've made the tightest script possible. You wrote all your personal statements in the most genuine and like masterful way you can, and like then you make it make it through.
I think on the flip side of that too, if you're not an English professor, try not to sound like one. Like, be yourself. Yeah, because we've all read that, and then you meet the person, you're like, that is so not what I got from that personal statement. So
This guy likes to use ergo a lot. Like, what the heck?
right,
QED.
So yeah, be yourself, be your best version of yourself. That's gonna, again, you're trying to make an impression, but making an impression doesn't mean that you have to falsely inflate your ego. Be humble in what your statement is. Know who you are and know who you aren't, because that's the kind of people we want in a program like this. We want people that are going to be teachable and that are going to be humble and know how to take a note. And if you can do that in the right way on the page in a personal statement, that is just like fireworks for mentors, because they're like, that's somebody that I can work with, versus I'm not quite sure if this person is really going to be open to really being notes driven, which is so much of the program. You have to learn how to take a note. And if you come across in your personal statement that you're kind of already there, it's probably not going to happen for you.
Yeah,
The best
again,
kind
just
of applicant, the best kind of applicant is self-assured and unassuming. Sorry, I cut someone off.
No, it's totally fine, totally fine. I'd say, just like we were saying earlier, this is a test of your storytelling abilities, right? You want to tell a story that's memorable, that connects to the essay prompt or the, why you want to write in some way. And it's something that is just a good story. I mean, if it's helpful, the one that I don't know if I wrote it for the Writers Guild, this program, but maybe for Universal, I think one of the essays I've written was when I was deployed to Iraq, right? I did some crazy stuff in the army, but like, I'm a nerd at heart, right? I like writing sci-fi, I like writing horror, and I like comedy. And so the story I wrote was like, when I was in Iraq, this is so nerdy, right? But like, me and a few of the other officers, we got together our laptops and we did like an old school like LAN party style situation. We played StarCraft, right? And then we heard like an air raid siren, and we're like, what douchebag is like launching a nuke as Terran Force, right? Which is like one of the playable things you could do is launch a nuke. And no one does it in the game because it's so lame, right? And then we realized no one launched the nuke. It was actually the base getting attacked, right? That was actually our warning siren. And so we're like, oh shit, so I'm like, then this was my first attack in Iraq, right? Was while playing a video game simulating war, right? And so then it's like, okay, this guy knows how to tell a story, right? It's something that's memorable, right? And it's also, you can tell this person, I was applying as a comedy writer, he's telling a story that's funny, right? Not to toot my own horn, right? But it's kind of like, that's the type of personal statement or type of essay you want to have, something that's memorable, that tells a story and connects to what it is that you want to do, what the question is asking.
And it grabs you right from the get-go. I'm gonna keep hammering home that point. The one thing that I keep seeing popping up kind of like in the Q&A, I think it was like a question about log lines and writing samples. Do they like matching up in terms, do we cover this? I don't know, in terms of the genre that you specify, your writing sample and your log lines matching up to that? Is it okay if they don't?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's more important that your log lines match closer to the genre format preferences you state in the application. So that will be a separate section. We'll order like what's your first, second, and third. That's kind of more important. If your writing sample is different, it's not terrible. Or I should say, like your log lines should not be the log line for that script, just to make that clear. These should be 3 unique log lines, new concepts that are not the script. So that's separate. These are like new story concepts. However, I would say it's helpful for those to fall at least closely to the writing, like close to your writing sample. Like, it's hard for us to gauge, like, will you be a great comedy writer if you're submitting exclusively drama or sci-fi with no comedic elements? So it's helpful for us to know, like, okay, this person can write feature, they can write a comedy feature, they can write in the half-hour format, they can do this, but not necessarily 100% required, but helpful.
I mean, Kira, if I interrupt, like if you want to be a comedy writer, you cannot submit a drama sample, right? Like
Correct.
it's really good. Like I'll give you a personal example, right? Like I made the finalist, I was a finalist for the CBS TV writers program fellowship. I'm not sure what it's called, right? And I made it in through a comedy sample I submitted, right? And they break these programs into comedy writers and drama writers. And when I went to the interview, I prepped with a guy who had gone through the program but was a drama writer. And he was like, oh, tell the story. It's going to get them moving, like the worst time of your life, etc. And I told that story. And what they told me was like, oh my God, you are not a comedy writer. And I was like, did I just fuck up this interview like in the first 2 minutes? And yes, I did screw it up because like they want to see that you can handle yourself in whatever medium that you want to be a writer in. And so if you're going to be a comedy writer, your sample, your essays, they've got to be funny, right? If you want to be a sci-fi writer, right, the sample that you submit has got to have some sci-fi elements to it. Otherwise, we're not going to know if you can write that genre or not. We hope you can. But if we're comparing that the unknown you situation versus somebody who is a good writer and is submitting something in the genre that they want to work in, the latter is always going to win. So you put yourself in the best position to succeed. And again, if you want to be a comedy writer, you should be writing comedy. You should have a stable of like samples to write. And if you don't, right, then you got to think, am I really a drama writer at heart who just wants to be a comedy writer because I think that's what's cooler, and vice versa.
Yes, I totally agree with all that because it's definitely come up. I can attest that we're reviewing an application. We're like, wow, very powerful, like moving, almost like heart-wrenching sample. And we're like, wait, this person wants to write half-hour like single cam comedy. And I blown away, and I think that there's beauty in combining genres, but I think it's also a reality that people do get kind of sectioned out into different genres and categories. So at least in the format of this application, it's helpful to make sure that it matches up.
No.
This reminds me of the question I actually wanted to ask, and that's does one's format choice impact in any way their chances of being selected?
Yeah, yes and no. As in like we do have certain, I would say like certain amounts of each genre or format that we can allow into the program. This is partially dependent on the number of mentors we have. I will say, at least for now, and I'm not saying that this is a hard and fast rule, but our program tends to skew slightly more towards TV. If you're really, interested in both and you are just dead on in the middle, and you are interested in maybe doing a pilot, I would say that's not a bad idea. We have a lot of mentors who are geared towards television right now. That's not to say that you wouldn't get in if you're writing features. If you're passionate about features, do not change your format just for the sake of this program. Definitely stick to what you're passionate about and what you know first. If you're like right in the middle and you're just like, I've experience with both, I love both. Not a bad idea to skew a little bit more towards TV, just the availability of mentors, but number one, stick with your passion. It's not going to make a difference. If your application's great, it's going to be great, and we'll see that. Your format would be one of the lesser things to impact that. But just know that, if it really came down to it and you're just making that decision, go first based off what do I really love? What do I want to do? And then think about like what might make the most sense in the context of the program, what I want to learn.
And in terms of like blending genres, like I know a lot of people wants to be like dramedy writers or whatnot, that's like its own category. But like just stick to like comedy or drama. But like if you want to write like a sci-fi comedy, just like, much to that point is yeah, you want to write science fiction, but you want to make it funny because it's all in dramatic worlds. So like, write that in. If you like the idea of like fantasy world building, for that in personal essay, how you like fantasy, but you also like comedy, so write that. Do they still have the categories of like where they choose their like the favorite movies or
Yeah. So I think
television? Okay.
I can't remember how we rephrased it, but it's something along the lines of name either like 3 or 1 movie, or name 3 film or TV shows that inspired you and explain how at least one of these or all of them impacted your path as a writer.
Yeah, so there you go. So like you can also write about those movies or television, like how they influence you. So like, oh, you're a big fan of Star Wars, but boy, do you love the 40-year-old virgin. So like why not write something like that, And And that'd be very interesting. A space alien that's, how does space sex works? I don't know, but maybe you might be the one who works that out.
No, I'm not looking at Yusuf's Google search history right now.
So how are applicants like ultimately selected? And then will applicants be interviewed? And any advice, I saw a little question in there, any advice you can give on that part of the process,
Yeah.
if someone happens to be interviewed?
To answer the first part, it's a long process. I would say I think the best adjective is grueling for us, which is 5 stages. There's going to be a lot of eyes looking at your application. We start out with the mix of alumni and mentors who are looking at the first stage, moves into second. Basically, you're definitively going to be read by several people who are very, very familiar with the program and what the requirements are. And you will also be, if you make it to a certain stage, mentors will be exclusively in charge of one of the review cycles. So mentors will also read through your application. We're going to assign them to them based also off their interests. So these would be mentors who would potentially be guiding you. The goal is making sure that whoever's reviewing your application is actually well versed in that, I guess, category, so to speak. So that's the overall process. And we don't guarantee that interviews happen with everyone, given how many people apply. If we do reach out for an interview, I would anticipate you'd hear from us sometime in May, or no, sorry, not in May, in April. I wouldn't hold out for it, I wouldn't bank on everyone getting one, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're doing better or worse. Sometimes it's like we simply just want to do some follow-up, or maybe there's an applicant that has an application that's very similar to yours, and so it's like we want to get to know you just a little bit more, or we're like really debating between the very competitive small number of applications that happen towards the end. So it's not good or bad, it's really just kind of like informational seeking. And then as far as the advice for the interview, maybe other people can talk about this. I feel like I'm a terrible speaker. As far as we say, I'm a rambler, so don't ramble, don't do what I do. But if anyone else has comments.
Were any of y'all interviewed?
I mean, I guess just be personable. Whatever questions they ask, definitely show that, oh, you're a friendly talker. You're not trying to hold anything back. Also, you're not trying to be insulting, and other things. So it's just hey, we're just gonna call, tell us about your life story and, ramble on about that. And, we just want to find out more about you as a person and, just see oh, this guy sounds very, this person sounds very friendly, and this person definitely could work with a mentor in terms of taking notes and, how to improve themselves and stuff like that.
You should definitely on the call spend just 10 minutes talking about yourself without a single pause or question asking the interviewer. The more obnoxious you can be, the more, yeah, okay. Anytime there's an interview, right? What people are trying to get out of the interview is how does this person handle themselves in a small group setting, right? Because so much of the program is you're gonna have a lecture portion that's about 45 to 60 minutes that you're gonna listen to you and get information from. And then you're going to break into your small groups of what is it, Kira, 4 to 6 or something like that, writers with one mentor. And in that small circle, you're going to workshop each other's scripts, ask questions. Your mentor is going to give you some genre-specific thoughts on different things. And so if you're the type of person who spends all your time talking about yourself, if you're somebody who's just obnoxious, somebody who doesn't seem like they can take constructive feedback in a way that without emotion attached to it, right? Or is someone who can't give that type of feedback, you just wouldn't be a good fit for the program because, you basically be people want to punch you in the face after the first round, right? And so that's really what the phone call is about. Assuming you're not that type of person, just be yourself. Just talk about what, excites you about writing, why it is you want to make this your career. Show that you've done some thinking about what it takes to be a writer and that you've done some thinking about your process of writing and the way that you're already trying to be a writer, even outside of the program. And those are all things that will make you really stand out.
Those are great words of advice. I would also say just have really good etiquette. Like it's not a business interview as in like to get a job. Just think about it coming in we talk about a lot about this in etiquette, especially in the writing world. You walk into a room not with your script in your hand. You put your script in your back pocket. So this thing that you're so excited about and you just want to talk about, you have to be the person first. You have to know how to have a conversation, be a normal human being, be able to kind of talk about the weather, or talk about politics, whatever you want to talk about for the, the minute for everybody to get settled, and then just be personable. Don't be talking about this script that you have and it's going to be the new blockbuster. Like let's keep your writing in your back pocket until it's asked about, and you're pitching yourself, not your product at this point in time. So just pitch the best version of yourself.
One mentor comes every year, Brian Anthony. He has a saying that sit on your ass, don't be an ass. So, dude, and I always follow that. So yeah.
Good advice.
Mhm.
So I realized we didn't actually talk about the resume portion of the application. I feel like it might just to cover that briefly for anyone who has a question about that. What are you looking for in the resume?
I think some folks, I think, were concerned that it has to be a writing resume. Not required. It's really just to give us an idea of your background. If anything, it's very interesting to see some of the backgrounds that people have, professional and otherwise. So don't worry about putting any writing experience on there. If you have it and it's already on there, great. But yeah, writing resume not required.
If
Perfect.
you're really good looking, make sure you put an image of yourself on the resume, right? Like I would definitely not, but like maybe Sarah and Yusuf could do it.
Actually, that's actually how I got in. And my resume was just a giant headshot of me and just didn't even
Yeah,
bother
just
writing any
8
of my
by 10
jobs.
photo.
Yeah, exactly.
So when walk me through the timeline for this application process, and when are applicants going to hear back about their application, and how will the WGF contact them?
Yes, we will respond to everyone, so keep an eye on your email. If you're missing those emails, especially, right after you apply, you get a confirmation, you don't see that, check your spam because it might mean that it's getting flagged wrong. So we're going to reach out to everyone with an update on your status in early May, no later than May 10th. But you'll hear sometime before that, ideally. That's kind of the last date. But you'll hear from us by email. And keep in mind, this is the email that's connected to your submittable account. So typically speaking, it'll be sent via submittable. It might say Writers Guild Foundation, but occasionally these get flagged by spam. So I really just recommend like whitelisting any emails you get from us straight at the beginning, flagging them in or like putting them in favorites, just to avoid getting, caught in the spam filter. And then, you might put an email in your application, but keep in mind, if you have a different email that you use for your submittable account, it'll go to that one. So yeah, make a note of that just because I know that gets confusing sometimes and not everyone gets the updates, but you will hear from us. You'll get a confirmation after submitting and you'll receive an update about your status by early May.
Perfect. Is there anything else that's vital to know about the application process?
I do have one thing that popped in my
Yeah.
mind. As far as the do nots of it all, I did write a couple down here. I like to keep it positive, but if we're sticking on the don't side, I would recommend if you don't apply, if you only are interested in making business connections, this program is very explicitly about the process of writing a script. As one of our mentors, Ashley Miller, said, it's process over product. So while we do offer some exciting events at the end, including a pitch night event where you get to meet with execs, I wouldn't approach this program as like, this is my way of breaking in. I think Harsha really said that well at the beginning. This is my one chance to like meet people and make those connections. And while we do provide a lot of opportunities and opportunities to network, and we do connect you with exciting, potential exciting relationships or events, that doesn't mean it's like the first step, like the one golden ticket to get into the industry. Really focus on honing your craft. You're going to come out with the product, and that in itself is very valuable. And that product is your completed script. So if you keep focused on that, highly recommend it. So as far as other, yeah, definitely you want to be like open to taking notes. And then this one's a little bit specific and might sound weird. I would advise against coming in and writing a personal story as your script. Um, this sounds strange, and I have caveats because that's not a universal thing, but I would recommend against writing a personal story if you are very, very attached to it, mimicking reality to a T. I say this because we've encountered some issues with folks who are like, this isn't how something happened, but their mentors are advising them from the perspective of a writer. And that might mean that your script might not match reality. So that's my personal note. It's not going to be universal to everyone, but maybe just think about, taking those lessons you learned from writing the script and then maybe applying it to your personal story outside the program. But if you feel like you're ready to open your mind, then by all means, we don't want to restrict your freedom.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I also want to mention, like, don't stress too much about like whatever your writing sample is, or say you got into a program and you want to write this one thing, like don't stress too much about it, because you could always change your stories to something else. We had a couple mentees that like just like one in this current group, one mentee suddenly changed his story, because it wasn't working for him, whatever ways. I know me personally, I wrote like 2 features through the program and ended up writing like 1 pilot at the end. So it's like, you could change things a lot. You could change your mind a lot. And yeah, we talk about like, just don't worry about like, oh, what if I'm going to submit has to be this thing. No, just like write what you think is the strongest for your skills at the moment. And then once you get in, the mentors will help you with your next story. And even if that's not working, hey, you can always write some more stuff, so.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing that I think is important for us to address is what can someone do if they don't get into the program this cycle, and if they've applied before once, twice, what advice do you have for kind of improving on one's application? You don't review previous applications, do you? Or do you keep track of that?
Yeah. We definitely, if someone's applied multiple times, I would say that gives us even more reason to look closely at your application. I think that's a good sign that you continued to return. If you applied and you didn't make it in, be sure that you are showing that you've worked on your writing in the meantime. It's not saying that it was bad to begin with, but we want to show that you've continued to write in the time between your applications. Very important. And then also, some people have talked about how, they've addressed in their statement how they've grown as a writer since applying last, which is awesome. That's great to see. I think, in other cases, we've experienced, some anger or resentment about it. While this is completely understandable, I would focus on, growing from here. It's certainly not personal on our end. If you didn't make it in, there's so many amazing people applying this program. So I just really hope that you don't become disheartened by, not being accepted. It's tough for people to be accepted on the first round. So know that you're not the only one, and that many, many, many people in our program experience that as well. But I'd love to hear from anyone else who has something to offer.
I would say keep applying. I mean, this is a business of no, you guys. In general, this is a business of no's, and learning and figuring out something to make you stand apart is just part of what you're going to do on every project and everything that you're going to be doing when it comes to your writing. You're constantly evolving, you're constantly changing, you're constantly trying to figure out what's going to land and what isn't. You have to be flexible, semper gumby, like always flexible. Just have that mantra when it comes into this, but don't give up and keep trying. And I mean, I didn't start writing until I was well over 40, you know, like this is something later on in life. And we have people that have, you know, had careers in the military. This is a very different beast when it comes to picking a career, or picking this thing, and you have to have a passion for it. And if a passion is a true passion, you get told no once, that's not really a true passion. So keep your passion up, keep writing, go pay for notes, make sure other people are writing your stuff. Like if you really want to invest in yourself and your writing, then you're going to have to invest in yourself and your writing. So that would be my advice.
Mhm.
It's definitely a long process. You know, and it's all, you know, it is a business of no, but it's also a business that you could get fired anytime. You know, I got fired from my last job I was in. So it's like, you know, and I feel like you can't be a real Hollywood writer unless you got fired, you know, and at least
That is
once.
absolutely true.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's the thing. It's a tough business, but like the thing is that if you really want to do it, you gotta keep applying, keep doing it, you know, and keep on trying, because the moment you stop, that's it. You know, that that's the end. Yeah. But if you keep on going and trying and keep improving your writing and keep doing your thing, you'll eventually make it. It could be, you know, next year, it could be 10 years from now, who knows? But like, you just gotta keep going. You gotta keep trying. And it
Yeah,
simply
and
goes with this
like
program.
yeah, and like, look, I'll just be blunt with you. No matter how good you think you are as a writer, you're not very good at this stage, right? We all think we were great. I thought it was fantastic when I applied, right? I look back and I'm like, man, this dude was terrible. Like, what was I thinking, right? And it's just because you're building your craft, right? It's totally normal to think your stuff is fantastic, but it's generally not going to be. And that's why if you can't take notes on how to improve it, right, that's going to be a problem, because you're going to be stuck at a level that is, you know, to make it as a writer and make it into the WG and sell something, right? Your writing has to be fantastic, and it has to be fast too. And if your writing is not fantastic and you throw a tantrum anytime you get notes and you waste time writing, right, that you could be writing, you're simply not going to write quickly enough or good enough to make it in this industry. And so yeah, if you got rejected previously, right, like that's okay. We've all been there, right? To make every writer in Hollywood has been told no probably 5 times as many times as they have been told yes. And that includes, you know, really famous people, right? I mean, like, I remember like a year ago, I was taking out a comedy script that was just getting no traction, right? And I talked to my manager and he's like, look, man, Will Ferrell can't get a comedy movie greenlit because it's just really hard at this moment, right? And someone like Will Ferrell, who's done multiple $100 million box office smashes, cannot get something greenlit, right? And is told no. That's kind of a sign that if you're a starting out writer, you're gonna be told no a lot. And so if that's something that's difficult for you to handle, fix that, right? Because you will not be able to succeed as a writer otherwise. And this program can be fantastic for you so long as you keep your mind open in order to try and make your writing better.
Yeah. And I think too, something that I would add that I've heard multiple you know, people who run fellowships say is you shouldn't, like, if you're really a writer, you don't need a fellowship or a program or something like that to confer upon you that you're a writer, because you're a writer. And these things and these opportunities are just, you know, you view them as like stepping stones. This is going to kind of get me to the next thing. But it's not the like make or break thing that defines whether or not like you should be doing this, like not at all. So, you know, perseverance is just the name of the game. And on that note, for the next like 10 minutes, just like wrapping it up, kind of like, you know, points. Did you want to talk, Kira, about just about kind of, you know, how once people get into the program, you know, how they're paired with mentors, or have we kind of covered that? What do you think?
Yeah, I could do just kind of a quick run through of what it would look like if you were accepted. So, just from, let's say you get that email, you're in the program. At that point, we're already behind the scenes working on matching you with the mentor. Our pool changes a bit each year. We do have a lot of consistent folks who have been mentoring for years now, many, many years, some like a decade at this point. So we do have that pool going, and you know, if any new mentors come in, we kind of add them in, start grouping together, and we look at your interests. We have you fill out a secondary survey, which is very intensive, as well as a skills assessment, which It's kind of like a test, but it's not a test where you can fail or, succeed. It's really just giving us an idea of where you're at. So, don't think of it as a determination of your skills as a writer, really just trying to figure out where are you at and which mentors will be best to help you at this stage in your writing career. So lots of surveys, lots of information up front, and then from there, we'll use that information to make those final matches. Submit a little rundown for your mentors so they know who you are, and then you'll meet them at the retreat. So it's a lot of lead up. We'll ask you to attend a virtual orientation before the retreat. So kind of like just keep in mind that if you're admitted, there's prep work that's going to be asked of you around May and like early June. We'll expect you to like respond by email, but try to make everything as clear as possible. And those will be critical in determining who you're paired with. Once you're paired, just keep in mind, we really put a lot of work into who we match you with. So we typically don't grant requests to change groups. I know that some people will see a mentor that they're like, I want to be with that person. And there's probably a good reason why you're not in that group. So we appreciate people being understanding and flexible when it comes to their placement, and just know that it wasn't a thoughtless placement. We think that these mentors will really help you succeed. Yeah, that's kind of the overview of how you're matched. And then as far as like moving into the rest of the year, your mentors at the weekend retreat might vary a bit from those for the rest of the year, as in you'll have some mentors at retreat who might not continue for the full year, or some who couldn't make it but are going to mentor you for the rest, but we'll make sure that you're as acquainted with them as you possibly can be. Yeah, the goal being, we really just want you to be with the mentor who will best serve you, and vice versa, you'll add to their own life, because we feel that the mentors get a lot out of giving to the program as well.
Perfect. What else? Any like final closing thoughts? Should we like try to answer some of the stuff here in the like Q&A that we oh man, there's so many questions here.
Yeah, we've answered 63 in the chat.
Wow,
and then 28 are remaining. So
Oh, wow.
I think
Lightning grounds. Go.
Yeah.
Power through them. Yeah, I see mentors genre centric. Yes and no. There's a lot. They have like multiple interests, but I would say the format is really where it splits. So we got a lot of mentors that are either TV or feature, and then within that we organize you by genre. So yes, in a way.
And you may have addressed this, I might have missed it, but applicants are expected to kind of self-assess, right? Like whether they're beginner, intermediate, like what in the application. Can you talk a little bit about that? And how that impacts. Yeah,
I'm gonna see if I could pull this up. It's a little hard to self-assess, I get that. To give you kind of an overview of what we look for, comparing beginner to advanced. So beginner we define as having received limited or no formal training in the fundamentals or business of writing for the screen, few completed work. So that's maybe a handful, no more than 3. And you require lessons on the basics. So that would be everything from writing dialogue to, writing your outline. This is the majority of people in the program. Like the vast majority. Intermediate would be receiving formal training, the fundamentals, multiple completed works, and this is again referring to screenplays, short films, TV pilots. And you already have kind of the basics down, but you might benefit from some reviews. Advanced, that would be extensive formal training in the fundamentals and business of writing for the screen, several years of experience in the industry or related work. You might not have broken in, but you've been working in some capacity in the entertainment industry. Many completed projects, and some have potentially been produced on some level, and a very, very strong understanding of the script writing process, and any lessons would serve as a review. So as you can see, the bar for advanced is very high, which is why we encourage you to really read through those specifications while you're applying, because very few people are going to be in the advanced category. That's just how it is in the context of this program. And again, not a bad thing, because a lot of our mentors are open to working at any level. But this helps us figure out, like, there are some mentors, maybe like Sarah can attest this as well. Some mentors have higher expectations in some ways, where it's like they're going to have more assignments, they're going to have more things. So we want to make sure that you're getting matched with the person that you're ready to be matched with. And that's not a bad thing if you're a beginner, because we have plenty of mentors who are more well equipped to work with people who are newer to writing for the screen.
I do have to give a shout out. So my mentor was Christina Walker, and she is amazing. She literally changed who I am as a writer. So this program, you guys, and these mentors is to invest that much time into emerging writers is like a gift. So when you're coming into this program, just understand the gift that you are going to be giving. Like, I know you're going to come in and it's going to be nervous and it's the whole thing or whatever, but recognizing that these are working writers, these are professional writers that are investing in you as a veteran, as an emerging writer. Even if you think you're coming in as advanced, that is investment of time that they are taking for you. And time is our greatest asset. So just remember, these mentors that they're going to be pairing you with, the fact that they're curating that so specifically for you is a huge gift, which is why if you don't get in this year, apply next year. It might have just worked out with the karma thing that the right mentor would be for the following year, not this year, because they're really trying to pair the right people with the right writers. So it might just be that year that whatever you're trying to apply for, you're just not quite there for the mentors that they have available. And maybe next year there'll be a plethora of kind of mentor available. So babies, I hear babies. So just
Yeah,
make
3 month
sure,
old.
right? Like you guys, the gift that these mentors are going to be instilling into you and just pouring into you as an emerging writer is pretty epic. So just know that coming in and understand the gift that it really can be for you.
That was a really good wrapping it up thought. Harsha, Yusuf, any final thoughts to add here? While we're kind of like wrapping it up, words of wisdom, inspirational quotes to get people motivated.
I have this poster on top of my desk. It's from Extra Credits. They talk a lot about video games and stuff like that. But the poster says fail faster, no ideas made fully formed. Your ideas can't be precious. Your ego can't need protecting. Every chance is to get it right. So keep trying, keep failing, because eventually you'll be there.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd say is maybe just on the industry a bit. I mean, most people who work as writers in Hollywood, and Kira's heard me say this many times, most people who work as writers grew up in a very similar way. They grew up generally very wealthy, top 2%. Their parents were doctors, businessmen, lawyers, etc. They went to an Ivy League school or like one of the Northeastern, like super prestigious schools. And right after they graduated, they came out to Hollywood and they worked as an assistant for 2 or 3 years or 5 years. And then they made it into a writer's room and became a writer. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But if 2% of the population is representing 85% of the actual writers here, and they all come from the same background and the same viewpoint, you're going to see a lot of stories that are very similar. Right? Stories that don't really reflect America or the things that the country's gone through or different swaths of the country. And so, never discount the experience that you have as a military veteran. That is something that is extremely unusual out here in Hollywood. Never discount the fact you might have as a minority, or if you're suffering with disability through your service, or if you grew up poor like I did, right? These are all perspectives that are not reflected at all in Hollywood, or reflected in such a small amount that your perspective is needed. And our perspective is something that it provides some value to this country and tells stories that are not really told here. And so I hope you apply. I hope you have a great application. I hope you get in, and I hope you tell stories that better reflect the America that we all grew up in.
Hear, hear. And if you don't get in, you can the WGF still has resources, the library, all this stuff. Utilize it, keep growing at your craft, and just keep writing, no matter what. I think that's any final thoughts before we I think that's pretty good. Thank you guys so much. Harsha, Sarah, Yusuf, thank you Thank you, Kira. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. This was great. I learned a ton. Good luck in your applications, and hopefully we'll see you in the program.
Thank you, everyone. All
Yep.
right. Good night.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.